All right, perfect. So, funny enough, I am taking an abridged revision of what I did last year in the parking lot of the church, because that was when we first ran into issues with meeting locations that we are still struggling through. But I think it's important. Again, it's just a refresher course of some of those things you might want to be thinking about. Again, considering the audience that's here, I kind of suspect most of you will know this. You can chime in for anything that I miss. This is mainly for the recording and anybody at home. But the first thing I brought, because unlike John, I don't like carrying a whole bunch of heavy stuff, I brought in my little 5-frame nuke that is kind of in a standard configuration that somebody might have for over the summer where they're collecting honey. So as a pop quiz, I'm hoping somebody can identify it. What is the first problem that everybody should take a look at their hive, that this hive is set up with, that they should be looking at addressing very shortly, if not now? Remove the queen. I was hoping it would stand out. If you, like I right now, I'm trying to go for some fall honey, so I had 3 hives that are on this. I also had my 15-year wedding anniversary. I've got kids in sports. I've got work. If I forgot about this queen excluder, trying to get that honey, if I forgot about it, this could be a real problem for you, because one of the most natural things about bees is they will move up in the winter, and that queen is too fat to get through. She'll get stuck below and die. So the first number one thing, please God, if you've got it, just double check your hives, take this thing off. This is a great time to think about reducing your entrance if you haven't done it. Everything comes with these little, bottom boards will have these little excluders, which you tend, as I understand, the appropriate method is to have the notch facing up. That way you get a space underneath so that when you put this in to reduce your entrance, that they can go. If you happen to worry about mice, which everybody has, there are additional little mouse guards that you can put on. Mice get cold. These are warm. They've got food in them. They like to come. Kind of shoring up this front is a pretty big deal. Not having it wide open for the wind and animals to get in is a big thing. I hear some, what are you?
I leave my excluders in there all the time.
You wear this thing?
No.
This?
Yes.
You leave it over winter?
Yes.
Wow.
Never lost a hive. But I've got a box on top that's got honey in it.
And they manage it okay?
They work around it or whatever they do, because I forgot them one year. You guys mentioned this, but I've never done it.
So what may happen, and this is a good call out, and I am talking in a general rule set. The flip side is, welcome Northwest Arkansas. I have pictures of dandelions blooming every month of the year in my yard. It's not brutally cold here.
Yeah.
Where you'll run into problems if the whole hive has to go up, because that's where they ball. It's a painful way to lose a hive, so that's why we do keep bringing it up. Again, like everything in beekeeping, sometimes you can get around it, but it's probably okay to take it off. Just save yourself a little trouble.
2 years ago, when it went from 70 to 19.
Yeah, they move right up. That, and I learned the value of. I had hives that, which is sort of the next, maybe as we talk about it. Bees are going to cluster in the bottom. It's not a horrible time if you're in your hives to look at maybe resituating so that you've got a lot of your honey frames up top and more of your brood and stuff on the bottom. Because and I'm sure everybody's had this scenario, bees are going to cluster. They can only, when it gets really cold like you're talking about, they can only reach the food that the furthest bee can do. So you can have full frames of honey here on the edge, but they're stuck in the middle. They can't reach it. They can starve to death. So it's not a horrible idea if you're like, hey, I've got a whole bunch of honey frames, but they're on the outsides and the bottom. You might look to move some of your brood frames to the bottom and those honeys a little bit more in the center, so that those bees, as they kind of do their natural clustering, they'll always have their honey. As Russell was mentioning, There are two things that you should also probably do. Have bees with honey, the old lift test. You should be getting a feel for your hives. If you've got multiple, it's definitely going to help. You're basically going to be looking for a little bit of weight. If you do this and you're like, oh my God, I about flipped that over, that hive is probably really low. The beauty of October and being 90, you can still be feeding your bees. Giving them 1-to-1 or 2-to-1 is a great idea because you've got, I think it is until it starts to get about, 50, 55, it's too cold for them. They won't draw down the simple syrup. Take advantage right now to get it all. Big thing in winter is going to be ventilation and moisture. It's not the worst idea to slightly prop up your hive in the back, because what happens is these bees are going to be keeping themselves warm. That generates heat. Heat against the walls, against a cold wall, creates condensation, and water is going to start running down. By tipping it a little bit, you're going to create a drain factor where that water can run out the front versus sort of building up there at the bottom.
I have mine already that way anyway.
You're ahead of the game.
That's just the way I set it up.
Yeah, and that's what I've heard is that some people will take it back and forth because if it's completely level, they will draw the frames better. Where in the winter, if you have bees that are drawing frames, you're doing really well. I want to know your secret. Again, this is really a quick one because last time Russell had a meeting, I took the whole time. These are just key ones that I do. The only other thing you might look at, because of, and this is a personal interjection, it's warm. The bees, in all the years that I've been keeping bees, they're flying every month. They're not that whole northern, they just cluster up and you never see them again. That's not the case. That's not actually the best for the bees because that means that they're burning energy looking for food and resources that aren't there. So thinking about what you're going to do, how confident are you with your honey that's in your box? If you need more, different members do different things. I personally put a little feeder spacer here. I make a bee fondant that I cover on the top, and it's just a food over their head. There's also, you can buy pre-made products that you can just slap on the top. And again, it's that idea of emergency bee food. It's not bad to think through. God forbid we have an actually cold winter. It would be nice to see for once. So far, I'm not seeing it. But if we get those cold snaps, just having a little extra food where they can reach it's a good idea. So with that covered, does any of the members that are here today have suggestions or recommendations for overwintering that you've had that sort of helps with your longevity, besides leaving the queen excluder on? I can't recommend that one.
Yeah, well,
You're lucky. You're doing a good job.
Well, over 4 or 5 years.
Yep. Never had a problem. Yeah.
But now I've left a full super
Yeah.
full of honey.
Yep.
And I mean,
That helps.
We hadn't really had all the cold weather.
Yep.
And we did that one time, that 22 below.
Yeah, for a week or something,
yeah,
but not
we,
months.
I mean, not months, but they could cluster in, but they must have been some right there.
Save them the
Because,
cream.
I mean, I thought, well, and then plus I had it insulated this year.
Oh, nice.
Last year, I mean, I had it outside. It wasn't much,
But,
I mean, there was some there.
and a little, I mean, Russell covered this last year. I'm sure he'd love to go through it again. At a later date, if you want, you can just bug him. But insulation and airflow is a big thing for winter hives. We covered for last year, and Russell would be your guy. We actually have the slide deck if we need to have a round two tonight. You'd be happy.
Facebook page have the side pages where you can actually vote stuff in.
I'm not big on Facebook.
I know some people, some pages, they have like a documents, a file section where these presentations can be voted in so people can go to. You're not going to see the links I have on the slides at that angle.
No, yeah. So for that, I don't mind putting it on Facebook. That's fine. But for sure, we will have it on the Benton County Beekeeping website, and all the videos will be on YouTube with links to them as well. So it's going to start spreading out.
I know on a lot of the hobby Facebook pages, there's like a what do they call it, a files?
Yeah, I think it's
Page or something like
I'm
that.
pointing to him because I avoid
Yeah.
Facebook like the plague.
On some of them, any member can load anything into there, and others that the administrators do it.
Yeah.
Here's how they have it set up. But it's kind of handy because then you just click on.
I think
that
that's
and see
a good idea, and maybe I'll get you the copy of these PowerPoints, and we can put them somewhere, and maybe in the YouTube, if nothing else, we can point links to them because these are a lot of good information.
If you need to, we can go over the one on insulating and winterizing again.
That may, again, we have to fill November or something, so you may be volunteering, but I've already got it prepped for you.
Just briefly on the insulation, I keep thermometers in mind. And even when the last winter was in, Christmas was up so crazy cold. Yep. At the very bottom, the inside temperature of my hives never dropped below 40. And that was at the very top. So the bees were able to move around the entire time. There were no frames they couldn't get to. Every year I've done this, my biggest problem has been in March, controlling the massive amount of bees pouring out of the hives, because they start brooding real fast and they come out strong and aggressive. I'm sorry, not bad aggressive, but
Ready to.
I have some of those too. But
Ready to grow. And ready
Yeah.
to swarm.
Yeah.
I think I mentioned, I think it was March this year, I had my first one, which is just stupid.
I didn't have any swarms this year.
You gotta tell me your ways, man.
Because of how fast my hives were growing, I added supers way early. I did not wait for 80% full. The first thing I put on was a full deep of empty frames. And then I put a medium on top of that. I never waited for them to get full. But I had so many bees in the hives, and I have defensive bees, so there was no problem with anybody getting in and doing anything. I don't have trouble with mice either. I would pity a mouse that got into my hive.
But I still slap them on.
Yeah.
But I've got too many cats. So.
Yeah. These are the small things that it may not happen to you, but if it does, it's just a crappy way to lose it.
So we ready for me? So I
we are ready for
got to clip this contraption on somewhere. Like that.
That'll work.
Okay. And I am going to have a chair up here for emergency because.
Absolutely. I will be your click jockey. So just tell me when you
Cool.
want to go next.
Okay. Well, in that case, I can stand here and I'll click to the next one. Okay. Has anyone ever searched on the internet, how much area do I need to have a healthy hive of bees? That's the answer you're going to get. 1 to 2 acres. That's all over the internet. I put that under internet legends right up there with many of the other ones that we see that come out, the Russian bot things they always talk about. So do you really think that you could take 2 acres of land, put a big screen dome over it, and put a hive of bees in there and they would make it?
I think, every time I've turned the screen bees in, then it goes bad.
No, I'm just saying hold them to 2 acres. They only have that 2 acres of habitat, and you have it perfect habitat. Do you think they're going to make it in there?
They might.
What is the 2 acres? The key is, what does the 2 acres mean?
Yeah.
I say it means a total of 1 acre to 2 acres of pollinator plants producing nectar at any given time during the growing season.
That would be the only one.
So you look out here at a 40-acre field right now with goldenrod in it, and there's 5% of the area covered with goldenrod. How much habitat do they really have right now? Whatever 0.05 times 40 is. And that's the way I look at it. The other thing is, you get out here and start asking on bee sites. Yeah, I'm going to have to get a chair. And you'll get everything from bees don't need feeding, bees are foragers, you don't need to worry. You can pack 50 colonies into one spot. You get all kinds of good
good answers. Okay, so go to the next one. This is my area. The dot is where I live, and that's a 3-mile circle. How much of that area do you think is bee habitat on there?
Where the creeks are.
Well, that's a good one, yeah.
That's your best.
Okay, this is Beatty Creek through here.
And maybe here.
That's just a big patch of trees. This here is my fall saving grace. That's soybeans. Other than that, everything else is managed pasture. Even around the chicken houses, they mow it. That is not bee habitat. The only other thing you got is the fence rows. And farmers hate fence rows. So there's not much there either. Roadsides, highway, right-of-way, great until the mowers come by. So my point is, don't pack in a whole bunch of hives in one location. I did have one guy on the site, he said that he used to, and he started getting into trouble when he limited himself to no more than 10 hives in an apiary, and then he limits them 10 miles apart. He got massive increases in his honey production and the health of his hives and everything, because they're not having to compete. It's not spring that's the problem, it's now. It's when you go into summer, you start getting the dry weather, things don't bloom. Or like this spring when we had a killing frost right when the stuff was supposed to flower. We didn't have any fruit on any trees this year. Other people had it. You go to the next one. This is the bee habitat we all want. All you got to do is just go and throw the seeds out there and get that, right? Go buy the seeds from some expensive place and just toss them. No, that's heavily managed. Otherwise, you have all kinds of stuff you don't want coming in. Okay, click the next one. That's my clover patch right now. It was beautiful this spring. That's lamb's quarter. That's the only thing green out there is lamb's quarter right now. And it's not good for bees. Other thing is, clovers do not survive droughts like this. They will come back from the seed that was produced in the soil and come back the next year. But then you got the problem, that green patch, that's Bermuda grass. I've got to get it killed out. Otherwise, it will take over and crowd everything out. I intend to try to plant a wildflower patch there this winter and see what happens. Okay, next slide. Okay, what are you going to choose for your site? Let's say you've got an acre or two that you can just plant. What do you want to plant? That's the next question. Do you want to concentrate on a mix that has something all the way from spring to fall? A little bit all the time? Or do you want to go with plants that concentrate on the time of year when around here we don't have a lot, which is June and on, which means you got to go with extremely deep-rooted perennial plants if you're going to do that. How about you're going to try to figure out the ecology of every plant and make sure they all thrive together, or just get you a whole big bag and just throw them out there? I guarantee you'll be a lot better off just buying a mix of the ones that are the type you want and let them figure out who goes where. You want to go short or tall? They have some of the supply places out there have what they call solar mixes now. Specifically, mixes of wildflowers that will not cover up solar panels. That's why they call it solar mix. Guaranteed to not grow more than 3 foot tall. That would be good for, like, in my case, where it's going to be outside the picture window part of the yard. That'd be really good for that. The taller plants, a lot of times they'll compete better with grasses and with a lot of the annual weeds. How about, what are you going to do about unwanted species in your patch? You're going to go out there and hand pull them? Going to pull the thistles and the lamb's quarter. Try to hoe out the grass. How about mowing it? Depends. This time of year, going into fall, after it's all went dormant, it would be advantageous to mow it down. That way, the annuals that come up, the new growth in the spring, doesn't have all that trash to go up to fight with. And then for weed control, chemicals. I know some people don't like chemicals. If you are going to start a habitat this fall, going into spring, you're going to have some grasses that'll wipe you out. One of them is cheat. That's the grass. It's almost like a carpet that comes up in early spring. It's real soft and it's worthless. Cows won't even eat it, but it will totally smother everything else out. Another one is chickweed. Chickweed will make a carpet. One chickweed plant will cover an area that big around. And then even some of them that you like the dead nettle, henbit, Carolina geranium, they'll crowd out your seedling perennials you're trying to get going in your seed plot. The grasses you can take care of. The broadleafs, you just have to deal with. There's some herbicides that you can use that are, Grass Be Gone is one, you can get it almost any farm store. There's another one called Fusillade that is more of a crop. Oh, the Grass Be Gone you can spray on your garden too. It's good with the garden crops. Okay, go on. Okay, in choosing, when you get to the sites to buy seed, always choose Zone 7. Zone 7 is just a hair, the north end of us. It's always better to go a little cooler than what the planning map says. Because we have some weather here that will rival anything in the Arctic for short periods of time. If the maps separate Missouri and Arkansas, always choose the Missouri section for the same reason. Cold hardiness we're up on top of the Ozarks. We're more like Missouri than we are Arkansas in general. And check where the source of the seeds comes from. There's one site I looked at, all of their seed comes from Oregon. Big, monstrous fields, monoculture fields of every plant. And they harvest it, then they mix it all together and send it all the way down here. That's kind of like, do you want to buy a package of bees that comes from an apiary in South Florida for North Arkansas? Do you really want to do that? I mean, there are differences. And then on average, it takes about 5 pounds to cover 5,000 to 10,000 square foot. So you're going to have to invest in about 5 pounds of seed for an acre. And it's not cheap. The next one. Okay, what to choose. This is a really nice site. It's on Wikipedia. The link is up there, or you can just put in a list of Northern American nectar sources for honeybees, and it'll pop it up. Okay, go to the next one. Next slide. Okay, it goes down, it gives each plant, it gives their common name, scientific name. This is what's really important for habitat development. It gives the month they bloom in. So, in the spring, most of the trees are blooming in the spring. One fruit tree will produce the equivalent of up to 3/4 of an acre of flowers for the bees. And around here we have persimmons good, wild cherry, plum thickets. What I'm getting at is you don't need to worry about spring habitat. If you can find something that blooms in June, July, August, that's one to go for. And there you have Devil's Walking Stick is 7, which is July. Yeah. Then the other ones is choke cherry, black choke cherry. That would be May. Catalpa is a good one. We got one in the yard. It's kind of neat because the worms just keep coming back and stripping it multiple. Oh, they're good catfish bait too, by the way. But they put out these beautiful long white flowers, and that's a June one. So if you have the space, look on a chart like this and choose you some trees and plant them. Also go with fast growing. Another one, I don't know if it's on here or not, is a Norwegian maple. It kind of looks like a cross between a sugar maple and a silver maple. It blooms late February, and if it's warm enough, the bees just swarm it, make huge amounts of honey off of it. The other thing is it doesn't show up here, but either the scientific name or the common name or both is in blue. You click on that, that takes you to the Wikipedia page for that specific species. And it'll give you a habitat, it'll tell you how fast growing, slow growing, the whole works. Next. This shows the one for hackberry, I believe.
No, commonly known as hackberry.
Yeah. And this is the page that click to. Hackberry is another one that's good for bees. Unfortunately, it's a spring flower tree. Next. Okay. Something else to watch out for when you're buying seed. Unless you have a drill and you're going to drill it in, always choose the bearded seed if you can get it. That's the one that has all the fuzz on it and all the little awns, all the little spikes. Not only do those things help the seed float in the wind, when they land and you go through the winter time and freeze thaw, those little fuzzy things actually pull the seed down to the proper depth in the soil and hold them there. The other thing about native seeds, they must have the winter cold to make them germinate well. So you want them to go through those freeze-thaw cycles. Next. Okay, here's some sources for seeds. American Meadows is a nice one that I found. Go on to the next one. This is their prices. Only $40 for a pound. And this is for a Midwest Pollinator wildflower seed mix. So for an acre, you would be spending from that site $200 to throw seeds on an acre of land. Okay, next one. This is another one. Stover Seed is another good site. This might be the one that all the seed comes from Oregon. I'm not sure. And free shipping on orders over $29. So click to the next. There's their Midwest Native Pollinator Wildflower Mix. They're $95 a pound. It's not cheap. Unfortunately, there used to be a supplier up by Nevada, Missouri, and they're gone now. They're real good. Okay, next. This is a very good site to go to. It's Pollinator Habitat Installation Task Force. They have all kinds of links. You name it, you get on there, and the brown little spots there, you click on those, and it gets you different mixes that are recommended, eco-regional maps, links to just all kinds of stuff. So that's a real good source. They even tell you how to plant sometimes. Okay, next. This is another one, Xerxes Society, and it will key you into your habitat, your area. So on this one, they have Arkansas, Missouri, with Oklahoma and Kansas and Texas, which most of them don't do that. Another good place to get information. Go on. Now, site preparation. The perfect way to establish your plants in a 1 to 2 acre plot is to, that's an old turning plow there up in the top corner. Most of them in Benton County look like that now. But that is the absolute best way to do it because it turns the soil and all of the seed you don't want gets put like 6 inches down and it rots. Then you come across, and that's a disc over in the other weeds over there. Then you disc it down nice and smooth. Now you broadcast or you drill in your seed. With the advent of no-till drilling and all the herbicides, nobody uses a turning plow anymore. They should. They should be doing it every 7 years, but they don't do it. That's why we're getting resistant weeds to Roundup. Really fun resistant ones. Okay, next. Okay, possibilities. You want to turn your yard into a no-mow zone? I know a lot of people would be happy with that. If you're going to do that, that's being pushed a lot nowadays. Is to turn it into wildflowers. If you're going to do a part of your yard, the best way to do it is broadcast seed. And I can't remember if this is the last slide or not, but if I may repeat something here. Okay, if you're going to broadcast, the perfect way to do it is mow it down. If you've got a tiller, rototiller, rough it up, and then wait and watch the weather. What you want is a decent rain coming, but not a flood, which the weathermen always tell you what's going to happen. And you broadcast the seed onto the ground, the rain, and then you want it like the year we had 70 degrees, a good rain, and then 19 degrees. That's actually what you want. Because you want the seed driven down into the dirt. Then you want a hard freeze that starts getting the frost freeze cycle for the seed. What do they call it? Cold stratification. Many of the native seeds have to be frozen like that to actually germinate well. And then the other option is, and this is the absolute perfect, if it ever snows again. You wait until you get about a foot of snow and you just go out there with your bag and just throw the seed on top of the snow. You got nitrogen. The snow melts. It carries the seeds down. You got a totally saturated soil surface. That night, it freezes again. Frost heave. It just starts pulling it down. Okay, how about patches of trees? Let's say you got a area that's just raw forest on your property, and you want to make it best for bees. What are you going to do? Go to the list that gives a list of the best pollinator trees there are. Find you a site or figure out what trees you have, and just cut down everything that's not good for bees. You know, things like oak, hickory. Well, hickory would be good, but oaks have honeydew on them, but they're not the best. And what you'll do is you'll encourage the trees that are good for bees to expand. You can also, there's shrubs that work very well as understory that also bloom. And you can build that up into a bee habitat. And like I said, one tree equals 3/4 of an acre when it's blooming. Abandoned fields. Some people have them and some of us don't. We used to have them all over around where I live. And as the price of land went up and farming machinery got more bigger and tougher, it's got to the point there's nothing left. So if you do have abandoned fields, if you have one you own, that's great. You just mow it down, start broadcasting the seeds that you want, and let it go. The number one thing on abandoned land is you've got to keep the invasive trees out. If you do that, you can pretty much let it become a natural habitat for all kinds of wildlife. Now, are you going to cultivate? That's the first one I talked about. You're going to broadcast it, frost seed, and then snow. We pretty much talked about all that. Does anybody here actually have access to someone who could plow it up and disc it and all that for them?
Our tillers.
Tillers. Well, we got disc. Don't have one that can turn around on an acre of ground, though.
Small tillers.
Yeah, but I mean, for a yard, for a little, most people just have the property they own is just simply their yard or big lot, and so tiller's as good as anything. Just buy a seed mix or a custom mix. That's your choice. I think from looking at the prices, unless you are really deep into agronomy and horticulture, you're not going to want to try to figure out your own mix, because you're looking at compatibilities, you're looking at growing seasons, growth habit, soil types. They're not all going to come up, but it's a lot simpler just to buy one of their mixes like they were showing there. And then we talked about weed control or give it up to nature, which that's your choice too. Actually, thistle are supposed to be good for bees also. We do have one weed coming into this area that is not good for anything, and that's poison hemlock. You're familiar with that? And a warning on it, there was a lady down in Texas that the city told her to clean her lot up or else, and she went out there with a tank top on and a weed cutter and just about died from it, because the sap in poison hemlock messes up your heart rate. Is how it kills you. Well, she was sweating, cutting all those plants down, carrying them around and everything, and just about got her. And it is a hard one to control. The birds eat the seeds, they bring them, they drop them. And so any place that you set up as a habitat, you're going to have invasives that you don't want, and that's about like taking care of a garden. Let's see if that's the last one. Yep, that's it. Okay, any questions? Did I make it real confusing?
We've got a few things if I can throw on just from I'm sure everybody knows this, but Joanna, she's our residential plants member, and she's always throwing these out, so I'm going to remind that maybe this is some things I'm touching on. She highly recommends that, as Russell was saying, you need to look not just when everything's blooming, but when the dearth is. She has always said, if you can, look at mountain mint and milkweed. Those are two plants that are really good about getting established. They bloom when nothing else is, and it's really good for your bees. So just at a high level, she's always pointed that out. She is offered to come back at the beginning of the year. Might see if I can con her into bringing samples again. So if you have a plot that you're thinking about, she may be able to help get you a couple to get going. And she's also pointed, this may be something that's worth, I'm going to be poking into to let people know when. But she mentioned down in Springdale, Shiloh Museum, in the beginning of the year, they often have seedlings that they will give out of native plants that they want. Hey, if you want to plant something native, here you go. You may not be getting the acres that you're talking about, but having something is way better than nothing. And just as part of being beekeepers, understanding that having foraging for not only your bees, but everything else that's out there is important. The more people who think about that, the better your bees are going to be.
And if you're going to go with trees or shrubs, absolutely look at how fast they grow. because some of these trees are fantastic for bees, but you'll be dead before they are mature.
I think there was a tree John was looking at, started with an S, a sugar gum or something.
Sweet gum,
Sweet gum.
slow growing.
Yeah, he's like, man, if you have one of those, it's worth like
Yeah.
acres of whatever. And he's like, and in about 30 years, it's going to be feeding my bees.
Yeah.
like a boss.
Yeah.
Like, he
And
planted it. But
that's where these resource sites come in so handy. Is you can look down. That went on Wikipedia. It has page after page of different plants, and it gives you all that information. The one thing is, though, that I kind of gripe about this is that since bees do not have a huge commercial backing, there is no really good research being done. Soybeans, tobacco, everything else, if there's money behind it, they pay for researchers at the university to research. There's gobs of plants out there that the bees utilize that nobody even talks about because it's never got into any literature. And that's where it gets challenging. But in the June, July, August, if you can find something that routinely flowers there, I don't care if it's a native or an exotic. If it's something the bees like and it is flowering, that's your choice. I'm going to go with what the bees like. And I've got one that I planted that does flower June, July. It's called Chastleberry, or another name is Vitex. And it's a shrub, but you just have to look because you have to look at multiple sites to try to find out this stuff.
And it's not a bad idea to do what you did on your first slide if you haven't, using Google Maps and just finding out what's your 3 mile radius, which 2 mile radius, which 1 mile radius, because that may help you understand where your weakest points are, because like he's got his map and he can point to it. For me, I've got a big creek. I know that's where most of mine comes, but I've got the entirety of Centerton, and that's not a built-up area as much as it's going to be in the next couple of years. But they seem to be more friendly, so I kind of know where my stuff can come from. So, if you talk to people, and that's always my favorite, is I'll talk to Russell, and I'm like, man, my bees are starving, and he's like, oh yeah, they're bringing in so much stuff from the soybeans, it's not being funny. If you get to know other members, it might be interesting to say, hey, are your bees bringing things in? And if they are, maybe you can find out what is in their area that you don't have, and you can start kind of putting that in. Now, watching the front of your hive, you're always going to be able to tell when they're bringing pollen back. It's a good idea. So.
For Shiloh Museum in Springdale, they have a seed library, kind of like those little the little book libraries that they have set up all over the place. And you can just go and they have packets of seeds that you can take. There's no.
It's right near their beehive too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they've got a lot of natives. So.
Yeah, and they're a good. I like the local resources. Shiloh's kind of interesting. You can get a membership, by the way. I did that to see if I can actually get notified of their events. I'm hoping. But they actually have little plots where they're growing most of this. So you can, if you just like, man, I don't know what that is or when it blooms, this is a place you can go and sort of see what it looks like, how much space it takes, what the blooms look like. And they have ready-made bees so you can tell if they like it or not.
Well, in Bentonville, starting to get a lot of hiking trails.
They're getting a lot.
If you just walk the hiking trails in the late summer, you say, oh, there's something blooming. Figure out what it is.
Take your phone and Google it and take a picture of it and it'll tell you what it is.
My phone won't. My phone won't.
Yeah, yours is
Yeah. And there's I'm not going to volunteer, but Joanna, when if she shows up, and she might be helpful. If I've done this before, like I took pictures of things, I was like, this is great. And she's like, that's horsetail. That doesn't help anything. Please cut that down. Or, hey, this is aster if you want that.
Yeah.
Like, it's not the worst idea to take a look around. I've got about 2 acres and I do my wife is behind me, but she gets a little frustrated at times. I've started with that alternating mowing where I'm letting part of my yard grow and trying to put seed down and letting it go. And if you're not in a subdivision that has all the codes, it's fun what you can get to come. And sometimes just relaxing that mowing, maybe doing some of the seeds that Russell's talked about, you can get a bit out of it. And again, it's also a great litmus test just to see how well your bees are doing. If they're all over it, that probably means that they're suffering a little bit, finding it elsewhere.
One other one is ragweed is an excellent pollen source for bees, high quality pollen.
So much of that.
Well, people don't realize that because it's not a good nectar source, but they really go for it for the pollen, and it blooms right when they're trying to build up for the winter brood.
Have you, I remember being told, I think by a prior member, that one of the best things to know what your bees are doing is to look at the allergy reports in your area.
Pollen
Which
count.
is really a weird thing because it's geared towards people who suffer from allergies, but it will say these are the things that are pollinating and are in the air. So you can actually track in your area, hey, you've got high ragweed or high whatever that's in the air. Well, if that's something the bees like, you can kind of say, okay, make a note. They've probably got this coming in, and you can follow up.
We're done.
Yeah, you did a great job. Any questions or thoughts? Does anybody else have a secret plant or tree that has done well for them?
Flowering crabapple tree.
Ooh.
It's fast growing too.
I've got.
Oh, one thing about feeding your bees that I do all the time, I put food coloring in it. That way, in the spring, I'll go in and any extra frames of honey, I'll pull them. And that way I can tell if they have stored any of the syrup I've given them and it's still left over from last fall. Because it's going to be green, blue, red, whatever.
Yeah, I've heard of the tales of the beehives next to like a M&M plant.
There was a candy factory in France and they were dumping it in a trash dump. And these poor beekeepers, all of their spring crop of honey came back multicolored.
But it was pretty to look at.
It was.
But it was weird. So, flowering crabapple, when does that bloom?
Spring.
That's the trouble.
How long?
Yeah.
How much does it? So, I had a crabapple when I was much further north. Does it avoid? My biggest problem with the flowering plants is they get taken out by the late
This tree.
So
I had a big tree
Yeah.
and the wife didn't like it. I said, well, what am I going to do with the bees? So I took 3 starts and started 3 other trees in the backyard. And now they're overhead tall. And that was just been a couple of years. And they bloomed, and it's mainly just in the spring.
Yeah.
And it helped them get them started.
Yeah.
And then that purple flower, I don't know what it's called.
On the ground?
Yeah.
That's henbit or dead nettle. They pretty much are interchangeable.
Yeah. But I mean,
Yeah.
I don't mow for quite a while. I mowed, that's almost gone.
No,
Then,
that's a good idea for a tree to grow.
yeah, because I mean, that tree, you just walk outside and you can hear
Mm-hmm.
them. I mean, whenever they're fully blooming, there's 5,000 or 6,000 up in there. But I mean, it was a great old big tree, but it was getting too close to the house. She's afraid it's gonna fall, so. But I did get some starts and put them around. But that's the only thing different than
Is it? So it's pretty hardy with the frost.
oh yeah, I mean,
It's very resilient. Yeah, I have peaches, and every year I watch
just make sure where you plant it.
Yeah.
the most beautiful blooms that are going to die in a week or 2 with the first frost. It happens every year.
Best thing to do, they didn't make it down to one trunk, and there was 3, and that's why I had to cut it. I mean, if it just been 1, I would just trimmed it up and been done. But it went out to 3, and this one's going towards the house,
Yeah.
one's going towards the garage. You know, I mean, you just couldn't. I just couldn't have it. But I needed to replace them, so I replaced that. And then that milkweed, I got some from Joanna, and it come up, the bees like it. Now I've got a bed for me to
I was going to say we don't need to buy milkweed seed.
I've been trying to get milkweed, I can't get it to take.
It won't take.
Well, I mean, now she gave us a plant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I stuck the plant in the ground, and it come up. I took all the seed off of that, and I'm gonna plant it around the stuff that's blooming now. I can't think what it is, but I was at the
Goldenrod?
garden.
Goldenrod.
Yeah, goldenrod. I'll put goldenrod in the middle. Once it'll be later and later, and then I was at the botanical garden. They've got 8 hives. Because I kept seeing bees, but I didn't see where the hives were. But they've got them off in the back corner back there where nobody can get to.
That's great.
Is that the gym from Fayetteville?
Yes.
Okay, so they're within my range. 'Cause I'm
Within.
in South Springdale,
Okay.
and so I've got like Lake Fayetteville, I've got botanical gardens, and
Okay.
all
Yeah.
that
Well, you've got
area.
I've probably seen some of your bees.
Mhm.
Oh, a friend of mine.
Lowe's is right there. Every time I go to Lowe's, I'm like,
A friend of mine told me a preventative for skunks. Get a carpet tack strip and nail it upside down along the front of the landing board of the hive. They don't like it.
Step on it.
Yeah.
How high? Yours is a block hanging.
Mine are 18 inches up.
Okay. See, now mine's just a block, and I've had skunks all. I've been trying to kill them because they're tearing up the
Yeah.
yard. My wife said, get rid of them. So I stayed out there 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, sitting out there, trying to find them, but of course, I never see them.
Skunk or armadillo?
Skunk, and I seen armadillo last night. I was supposed to take my gun with me to go check my cows. I said, no, I don't need it. I laid it down in the house and walked out the door, and there he was. I said, he would have been goner if I'd have.
We plan that. Yeah. How high does a hive need to be to stay away from the skunk?
18 is the recommended. It makes them have to rear up. Now, I had one that I dispatched this spring that was I think he's really old because I caught him in daylight. What he was doing was he was waiting for all the bees to come out and mass on the landing board, and he didn't have to scratch at them. But his eyes was totally swollen shut from being stung too, because he's in daylight. And I wondered why my bees were so mean. And then after I got rid of him, they calmed down.